have to constantly come up with special incentives and events for my academically challenged boys. Billy wasn't having any part of it. I tried to figure out what made him tick. I lucked out and helped him find some books that truly interested him. We shared the same sense of humor, and he started to realize that I truly understood him. All of these factors helped to boost his self-esteem. Billy's newfound confidence began to spill over in homeroom academics as well.
Michael was active in theater, but after discussions with him, I felt he was somewhat isolated in the tech world of theater. I knew robotics would be a great fit for him. When students feel that they are a part of a school community, success comes easily. Michael joined the robotics team and quickly found a group to connect to. He was good at robotics since he had built structures as a young boy with similar materials. He appeared much more confident in class. He truly blossomed as an individual.
He often will stop by my room to chat at the end of the school day. We enjoyed talking about books he's reading and the activities he's participating in outside of school. By sharing his interest with me, we were able to make reading more interesting and get him through a difficult patch.
Ned was one of my most eager and enthusiastic students, and he loved to talk about art and art history. Because of his interest and knowledge, I was able to get him a summer job at a local gallery before he left for college in the fall. In college, he took several courses in art history, and now that he is studying to be a medical doctor, he sends me emails from time to time telling me of exhibits he'd like for me to see. I'm sure that one day I'll see him in a museum with his child, imparting his joyful love of art history.
We talked about cars and planes when nobody else was around. I think that same talk grew larger and expanded in those moments when our sameness was most apparent. He knew that I saw value in the difference that he thought set him apart.
John spoke eloquently about the music he loved, and he had clearly thought a lot about how music affects himself as well as the listener. Our conversations made it clear that John was not just a casual listener, but was sincerely interested in how a particular art form made its magic. Luckily, John and I shared a free period right after our class, and it became the norm for John to stop by my office and talk. John would sometimes talk for 20 minutes straight about what he was listening to, or a set list, or his favorite bands. As I look back on the early part of the year, I think that John appreciated that I really listened and that I took his interest seriously.
I reassured him that I saw differently and that I expected more. He had once commented that he would like to make a 90 or above just once in my class. I informed him that it was completely possible if he applied himself more than just the night before. After Christmas break, we took a quiz on which Murdoch made a 92. With the effort of everyone pushing this student on, he found the will to push past his own self-doubt and rise above previous expectations.
It was so clear that Jacob struggled with his teacher relationships in the past, perhaps because his reputation preceded him, fairly or unfairly, and because he wore them down over time for similar reasons. I worked with Jacob day in and day out on self-control and peer relationships. Jacob began to see that when I corrected him, that it wasn't personal and that I truly was trying to help him because I cared.
I took a deep breath and told Edward, I get it. My parents got divorced too. It's really not fair, he said. I know. You can't fix the things with your parents, and you really don't get to ask for fair at any time in your life. But you like school, right? He reminded me that he liked everything about school, except the test. So, when you're at school, you're surrounded by friends. You like learning about stuff, and you've got a bunch of teachers who want to help you succeed. Edward agreed. So, what if you look at it this way? School is a part of your life that you do have control over.
One day, while writing a batting order and lineup for the team, Dane was the only player in the dugout with me. I asked him how things were going. Then I showed Dane the lineup card and said, "What do you think?" From that day forward, Dane was a different boy towards me. He demonstrated a new level of respect once he realized that I valued his opinion about the team.
I always found one constant truth: the willingness and honesty to open myself up to students so as to form a special relationship that extended beyond the classroom. Specifically, I found the more I shared about myself in order to foster an appropriately framed open dialogue with my class, the more students listened.
He would question me about every missed question, often in front of other students and in a confrontational way. I decided that I would treat his challenges as something which came from security about getting things right, rather than an attempt to grade grub or harass. I explained how his constant questioning of me made me feel frustrated. A transformation took months.
At first, I tried my usual teacher mode to encourage him to make better choices in the way he behaved. That would make a difference for only a few moments, if at all. Finally, I decided to take a whole new tack on dealing with him. Instead of being negative, I tried to ignore the negative and only catch him while he was cooperative. To be honest, that was quite the challenge, but as time went on, I noticed that though his behavior wasn't the best, he was quick and perceptive.
Jim tried to prepare for quizzes, tests, and the like, but his results were uniformly dismal. About 2 months into the school year, Jim mentioned that he was very interested in art, specifically drawing. I noticed that he had a sketchbook with him, and I asked if I could see some of his work. It was evident that Jim had a real talent and passion in this area. We began to look at new strategies that would allow Jim to organize information in a new sketchbook, one that he would only use for U.S. history.
Addressing Sam's need for visual stimuli as well as help with auditory input required a careful structuring of lessons along with constant awareness as to where Sam was sitting. It was essential that his placement be front and center so that he could see and hear well and be cued when necessary. Those efforts resulted in a successful year for Sam.
At some point early in the year, I was talking to John about his interests and discovered that we had similar tastes in music. Over the course of a few weeks, we had several long talks about music and its ability to reach people. John spoke eloquently about the music he loved and had clearly thought a lot about how and why music affects the listener. Luckily, John and I shared a free period right after our class, and it became the norm for John to stop by my office and talk. After a few months of almost daily conversations about music, I noticed John's grades in my class improving. He started coming to my room to discuss what we were reading and began making connections between the literature and the music. When a boy knows that a teacher is truly interested in them for who they are certainly more likely to take that teacher's subject more seriously. Of course, I learned a great deal from John and value the relationship we formed.